Welcome back to another edition of Force Friday, where we talk about Star Wars theories, characters, concepts, comparisons, analyzations, collectibles, and more. And today we're going to be comparing the Star Wars Black Series recently released Attack of the Clones Obi Wan Kenobi versus the Tamashii Nation's SH Figuarts Attack of the Clones Obi Wan Kenobi. More like Obi-2 Kenobis, you know what I'm saying? What? Don't worry about it. Somebody recently said, has a Black Series ever really knocked Figuarts out of the water? I think you can make the argument for the first Darth Vader that Figuarts produced, in hindsight anyway. But while we may expect Figuarts to win most of these, if not all of these, I think it's interesting to note what categories Hasbro ends up winning, because those categories may be more important to the consumer than the categories SH Figuarts tends to clean up in. And I think it's also interesting to note how close it can get score-wise in comparison between a $20 figure and a $60 to $100 figure. Also, eventually, Bandai model kits will create something that I'll be interested in as well, and we'll compare those with the counterparts and then see how they fit in, where the price is more comparable and Hasbro has a much better shot of walking away with a win. It's definitely not to just beat Hasbro over the head again and again and again with losses, but more so to illustrate how close Hasbro is getting and in what categories. So with that, let's get started, but in order to do so, we got to start with accessories. Starting this off, it's kind of just what we were talking about. This is one of those categories where Figuarts is just always going to mop the floor with Hasbro, and accessory-wise, this is definitely one of those options. So we have Hasbro with the lightsaber and the hilt. We have Figuarts with the lightsaber with the blade, the lightsaber without the blade. We have multiple hands. We have an additional head. This is just one of those examples of where the Hasbro is always going to fall short. Moving into build and materials, obviously, this is one of those categories, much like the accessories, where the SH Figuarts is just going to clean house. But like we talked about in the opening footage, maybe accessories aren't that important to you. And even though the SH Figuarts may win, interesting to see what Hasbro does. But once again, the level of plastics, the elegance of the engineering, the tolerances, they're just night and day between the Hasbro and the import offering. Moving on to sculpt and paint, we'll start with the overall presentation. And honestly, I feel like the proportions are a little bit more true to life on the Hasbro, whereas the SH Figuarts seems a little skinny. Now, I know last episode my baby called the Hasbro one the fat one, and I know where she's coming from, but like if you look at the legs, for instance, those are little itty bitty legs on Ewan McGregor in that toy for him to actually be able to stand and have the strength to hold up a human body that's, 5 foot something. Now, there is something about how the body sits in itself, if you know what I'm saying, like where the shoulders sit, how the waist and everything seems more kind of human, whereas the Hasbro seems more toyish. But I'm gonna have to tie them because the Ewan just doesn't, his legs are so skinny on the Figuarts in comparison, and I don't really notice it until I put it next to something else. So the heads. Now, unfortunately, this is where they kind of get it wrong. Both of them. So I think the Figuarts wins here, at least in regards to sculpt. But the paint here on the Figuarts, it doesn't look real. And it's the eyes. The eyes look kind of animated. Now, the Hasbro, on the other hand, looks more like a young Kenny Rogers. But the Hasbro paint, I think, looks more human than the Figuarts paint. And also the subtle washes in the hair look more realistic than kind of the heavier, dry-brushed approach to the hair on the Figuarts. So I don't think either of them get it right here. They both miss, but they miss for entirely different reasons. And they both hit for entirely different reasons. Like, I like the beard far more on the Figuarts. He looks less Kenny Rogers-y, but just not great. And honestly, from the profile, it's kind of the same bag. I would say that the sculpt works a bit better here as well on the Figuarts, and the paint probably works a bit better on the Hasbro, ironically. As for the torso, both have the 3 layers of robes. However, I think that the Figuarts' subtle lightest shade at the top works better than the pure white on the Hasbro. Also, I feel like the sculpting looks a bit better on the Figuarts than it does on the Hasbro, but that's really negligible. It's just the textures of the robe do come through in the Figuarts, where I feel like they don't as much in the Hasbro. Now, in regards to the belt, I'd say it's pretty much negligible. They have all of the kind of key components. They're all sculpted well, they're all painted well, and painted clean. And in regards to the profile, I would say it's pretty much equal. Nothing really stands out about either that's necessarily better than the other. I think you could actually make the argument that the Hasbro's at least cleaner. So perhaps in that regard, they might even take the win, but it's so minor that I don't even think it's worth noting. For the arms, from the front, I probably have to give it to Hasbro just because of how clean it is. Now, recently somebody said that they think that the elbow hinge is so ugly on the Figuarts. I guess. I think that's just subjective because I would prefer that ball hinge with that articulation over the limited range with the Hasbro and that big ugly rectangle cut. Yes, the ball hinge is more in your face, but the rectangle cut is just more rudimentary, I feel like. But, you know, that's subjectivity. That's just par for the course. But I think Hasbro does take it from the front view because A, it's cleaner, and B, it's more cohesive, whereas the Figuarts has all those breakups and there's different tones and the grays and all of that, and it does kind of take an L in that regard. Now, from the side, I feel like this is where Figuarts takes off. I love the kind of mass of the robes here. But the Hasbro's is cleaner sculpt-wise. You know, and the Figuarts has some kind of subtle shading and stuff, but I don't know. I don't know if I can give Figuarts the point for this. For the hips and upper legs, the Figuarts is once again kind of more elegant because it has layers for the tabards. However, because of the way they sit, they're always kind of jutting forward or jutting backward. So once again, while the Hasbro's are kind of simpler, they might be more effective and efficient in looking right at the end of the day. But the Figuarts does have the shading on it, which does look good. From the profile, it's pretty much the same, but you get what I'm saying here where the tabards are kind of jutting forward and backward because of the way that they overlay and underlay with the other corresponding tabards. And as a result, it just, while more elegant, doesn't always look as good. And moving on to the lower legs, while I like the glossy look of the Hasbro one because it kind of looks like leather, I have to admit that the shading looks perfect as worn leather on the SH Figuarts. Once again, far more elegant, far more sophisticated. And from the side, I feel pretty much the exact same way. From the back, we're kind of left with the same sort of thing where the Hasbro ends up looking chunkier and clunkier, and the Figuarts ends up looking kind of more human and cleaner. So once again, that just comes down to articulation engineering and how they choose to do business there. Now, you can make the argument that stuff like the knees and stuff like that hollowed out and for the articulation is unsightly, and I wouldn't disagree with that. However, I think that that entire bit is unsightly as well. I might tie it out just to be completely objective, but my personal preference is certainly the Figuarts here. And it's a tied game. They tie at the head because they both do different things right and wrong for different reasons. They tie at the thighs because you can't really see them anyway. The front and back are pretty much tied, and once again, for different reasons. The SHF ends up giving that up as a tie for the little legs that I didn't notice until now, the little chicken legs. But Figuarts takes the lead on the torso for a much better paint application and sculpt, as well as the lower legs for the exact same reason. Whereas Hasbro takes the lead for the arms and the hips, the arms for the cleaner sculpt, and the hips because it doesn't have the tabard issue. And let's go through articulation. So we have a double ball peg from the head into the neck, and then a single from the neck into the chest. Using both, little limited, you get the head down to there, swivel, and a confused dog look. The Figuarts uses the exact same engineering. Double ball peg from the head into the neck, single from the neck into the chest. You get a little bit more down, but it's negligible. Nothing really up. The swivel, and a confused dog look. Single ball peg from the abdomen into the pelvis. As a result, you get the swivel, you get a little bit forward, a little bit back, and a little bit of a sassy sass. Double ball peg from the torso into the pelvis. You get a little bit more forward, far more back, a little bit more sassy sass, and the swivel. Disc hinge shoulder gets you out to 90 degrees. It has a ball peg that it goes into that gets you a bit forward and a bit back, and you get a swivel all the way around. Ball hinge shoulder that goes into a ball peg gets you a little less than 90 degrees. Better butterfly forward maybe, and far better butterfly back. And then you get the swivel all the way around. No, you got to stop and come back, but who wants their arm shooting off at that angle anyway? Bicep swivel where the elbow hinge plugs in to the upper arm. Separate individual bicep swivel. Single hinged elbow that gets you 90 degrees. Ball hinged elbow that gets you a fair bit past 90 degrees. Ball hinged elbow that gets you a little bit past 90 degrees. Wrist swivel hinge in out on both hands. Ball hinge wrist that can hinge up, down, or end out because they swivel at both ends. Wide jointed ball pegs, I think I said T-jointed in the review, but they're wide jointed ball pegs. They get you out to there, forward and back to there. Drop down T-jointed ball pegs, they get you out to there, forward and back to there. Thigh swivel, thigh swivel. Double jointed ugly knee for the full run. Single jointed pretty knee, so to speak, for not quite the full run, but it's pretty close. Disc hinge for the ankle, get you an ankle tilt up, slight, an ankle tilt down, and a rocker. Double ball peg for the ankle. Get your slight ankle tilt up, slight ankle tilt down, a rocker, and a toe hinge. And articulation, this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is a game here. Like, SH Figuarts does take the lead, but they don't smash the Hasbro. They got 4. They got the waist because of the double ball peg. They got the shoulders due to a slight increase in the butterfly motion. They get the wrist because it's done better. And they get the feet because Hasbro doesn't do foot articulation. But Hasbro takes the knees and the ankles, surprisingly. And they tie and everything else. 2 more greater ranges of articulation than the $20 product. It's stuff like this that makes me want to do and continue these versus videos. Scale-wise, I think it's negligible. I think you'll be happy with either or. Just to drive the point home, I have the Hasbro next to the SHF Anakin and the SHF Obi next to the Hasbro Anakin. And really, the differences are extremely minor. However, I will say, I think I prefer the SHF Obi with the Hasbro Anakin because I like the height difference a bit more. But once again, that's me being extremely picky. Do you care which one of these looks better?
I do not.
All right, can you tell me which one looks better? I'm gonna start sending you yours in a bit.
That's like making a decision at the restaurant. I mean, I like the face better on the left, but I kind of feel like I like the jacket a little better on the right.
So which one do you think looks better overall?
I think I'm gonna go with the one on the right.
Pick them up and put them down.
The one on the left feels a little better.
All right, Jana, do you care which one of these is better?
Nope.
Which one looks better?
This one.
All right, pick them up. Which one feels better?
Probably this one.
Okay. Selena, do you care which one of these is better?
No.
Which one looks better?
That one.
Okay, pick them up. Which one feels better?
That one.
This one? Okay. Baby, which one looks better?
This one.
Okay, and pick them up or touch them. Let me know which one feels better. Which one feels better?
This one.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And here we are with our final category roundup. And what we have is SH Figuarts taking the lead in accessories, build, and materials, as they always kind of do. They take it in paint and articulation, but lose in sculpt to the Hasbro. They take it in presence, but lose in feel to the Hasbro. Now, obviously, that's a bit weighted because it's by my family, but them the rules. And Hasbro takes the price as to be expected, but they tie at gimmicks because neither of them really have it. Hardware because neither of them have it. Scale because they're both in the right pocket. And likeness because neither of them really nail it. Which brings us to a final score count once again of 6 versus 3, but a different 3. And it was a lot closer, even though Figuarts ended up edging them out in a few areas. It was a lot closer, particularly in the articulation department. But at the end of the day, it's really about how these points matter for you, how these points scale for you, meaning what is ultimately most important. And hopefully it is of some help, use, and benefit. Hope you guys are staying safe. Hope you guys are staying sane. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.